There are a lot of options when you go to join the Army or even re-enlist in the Army. Things to guarantee certain things. Maybe you want a guarantee they're going to get assigned overseas. Maybe you want a guarantee that you're going to go to airborne school. So it's important to understand these options so you know what to look for, because that's what I'm going to be explaining in this video. That starts right now. There's different things that probably matter the most to you, things that you want when it comes to joining the Army, as far as maybe schools, maybe duty assignments, all sorts of things, and you want to make sure you get the right contract. Or even for somebody who's currently in the Army who wants to stay in the Army and wants to make sure that if they're going to stay in the Army, they get this. So these options in these contracts is where that kind of comes into play. Some of these contract options are different for individuals who are wanting to join the Army and they're looking to get that initial contract. Some are specifically for individuals who are re-enlisting, so it's important to know the different ones. It's especially important when it comes to option 4 because that's the tricky one. So make sure you stick around in the whole video so that way you understand the differences with option 4. And of course, if learning about the United States Army is your bread and butter, what you're wanting to come to YouTube for, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button because that's the type of content that I like to help you out with here on this channel. So we got to, of course, kick things off with option 1. Option 1 is only for individuals that are looking to stay in the Army. You want to re-enlist, you want to stay in the Army longer, you're going to renew your contract for X amount of years. Option 1 is probably not a very common one that people would ideally want to go for because it doesn't guarantee anything. You're just extending your contract for 2 years, 6 years, whatever you're looking for. No guarantee of duty station, no guarantee of school, nothing. You're just basically re-enlisting and doing however many more years you're re-enlisting for. But then there's option 2. Option 2 now is to re-enlist for your current duty station. So for example, I actually used this particular option when I re-enlisted because I wanted to stay at Fort Carson, Colorado. So I re-enlisted so I could stay at Fort Carson. Now, along with this also usually comes stabilization. Now, what does stabilization really mean though? If you get stabilization into your contract like option 2 might have, it may come with, let's say, 12-month stabilization, 8-month stabilization, whatever it may kind of define in the contract. And that basically means that they're not going to send you somewhere else, right? You're not going to go and, let's say in this case, re-enlist for Fort Carson and then all of a sudden 12 months later get orders to go to Korea because in your contract you put that you wanted stabilization and you got granted X amount of months of stabilization. But that does not mean you're immune to deployments. If your unit's still going to deploy, you're still going to go on that deployment. You're just not going to get sent to another duty station for X amount of months based on what was in that stabilization. So that's also something you might see in an option 2. How about option 3? Well, that's also a re-enlistment one too. So if you want to re-enlist, but you want to be guaranteed to get to go to a specific school, then you want to talk to that retention NCO about an option 3, because that could potentially get you a school that's basically, you know, that qualifies, I guess, under your MOS. Because like if you're, let's say my old MOS, an 88 Mike, and you want to go to sniper school, well, that's not part of your MOS, so you're probably not going to get that. But if you want to go to a qualifying school, you want to go to airborne school, you want to go to ranger school, you want to go to something maybe that's also related to your MOS, like engineers may want to go to sapper school, right? Then sure, if there's a slot available and they can put that into your contract, that option 3 will guarantee that after you re-enlist, you get to go to that school. That mainly can be key because, sure, there are times where at your unit you can request to go to that school, but that gets tricky because the unit may only have a certain amount of funds to be able to send X amount of people. It becomes a competition of which soldiers are the better soldiers to send to this school, which ones really would benefit from this school. But if you don't want to have to play those games of trying to do the competition and trying to hope that you get one of those slots, maybe the unit only has a couple of slots, you do this option and that guarantees that you're going to get a slot and you're going to get to go to that school. But then there's option 4, and this is the tricky one. The reason why I say this is a tricky one is because there's an option 4 for people that are trying to come into the Army, and then there's an option 4 there for people who are trying to re-enlist in the Army, and both of the definitions for what an option 4 is varies based on which one you get. So if you're someone who's just trying to do research on the internet and trying to do research for an option 4, you may get some different definitions because sometimes the internet doesn't get the correct answer for the correct type of response that you want. They may give you the answer for someone who's re-enlisted in the Army when you're someone who's trying to join the Army under option 4, and it gets confusing. So let me break down the option 4 so you can understand it. So first, an option 4 for someone who is wanting to join the Army. If you are someone who wants to join the Army and you ask about an option 4, your recruiter mentions an option 4, option 4 would be to get guaranteed airborne school. So this would make it to where once you complete AIT, or if you're doing one station unit training, OSIT, like infantry does, then after you complete OSIT, then you would go off to airborne school. So after you complete airborne school, most likely you'll go to an airborne unit, but that's not completely guaranteed, but in most cases, you're going to get sent to an airborne school. I have heard some very rare stories of people that completed airborne school in this option and did not get sent to an airborne unit. But like I said, for the most part, I believe that's pretty rare. Now, if you're someone who's already in the Army and you want to re-enlist, option 4 is different. Option 4 is to guarantee an overseas assignment. So if you're stationed stateside and you want to get stationed in, let's say, Germany, then this would be the option you want to re-enlist for as an option 4, so you can guarantee that you're going to get to go to Germany and you're going to be guaranteed stabilization of like 12 months, which is like a typical tour, but that means that maybe, you know, after 12 months you could get sent somewhere else. For most part, you know, for certain locations, right, like Germany, they're probably going to leave you there for 24 months because it's a 2-year assignment, but nonetheless, an option 4 allows you to be guaranteed that you are re-enlisting for an overseas assignment. And the reason why this was important for me to explain the differences between the two is because if you are trying to do research because you're someone who's trying to join the Army and you want to get airborne school and you try to look up, hey, I heard that's an option 4, and you start seeing a bunch of information about, no, option 4 is for guaranteed overseas assignment. That's different, okay? That option 4 for overseas assignment, active duty, people, individuals that are already in the Army. Option 4, guaranteed airborne school, people who are wanting to join the Army. So that's where it was key to make sure to distinguish between the two. Next, though, we have an option 5, which is for individuals currently in the Army who want to re-enlist, but be guaranteed a stateside assignment. So possibly, maybe you're not happy with your stateside one. You got stationed maybe at Fort Carson, let's say, and you don't like it. And you want to get, let's say, Fort Cavazos. You want to go and get Fort Bragg, right? Well, then you can do this option and you can guarantee that you're going to get that stateside assignment, right? To be able to choose that stateside assignment as long as it's available for you, then you can be able to get that. So option 5 allows you to get guaranteed a stateside assignment. So options 1 through 5 were mainly for individuals who are currently in the Army looking to re-enlist and guaranteed specific options, right? With the exception of option 4, because that one can be dual, either for people currently in the Army or people wanting to join. But from here on out, the rest of these options are for individuals that are wanting to join the Army and they want to guarantee something. So next we're going to talk about is option 6. Now, option 6 is actually very similar to option 10, and I'll mention a little bit about that here in a minute. But option 6, and essentially option 10, is essentially the same thing, but it's for individuals that maybe English isn't their first language. So they need a little bit more assistance with being able to be a little more fluent in English before kind of doing their job in the Army and being in the Army. So they do an option 6, which allows them to be able to go off to a school in Texas to become like essentially more fluent in English, maybe be better at understanding and comprehending English, so that way they are more compatible with being in the Army. But like I said, the definition on option 6 and option 10 sound pretty much the same. I'm guessing that maybe, I don't know for sure, but maybe one of them is like, hey, you did really bad on the ASVAB, but we'll still let you join, you just got to work on your English, so we're going to recommend you go off to this school in Texas. And the other one is like, you already know that you're bad at English, but you want to be in the Army and you volunteered for it. Maybe, I don't really know. But essentially, an option 6 and option 10 is the same for individuals who have basically English as a second language and they need to become more fluent in English. Then there's an option 18, not to be confused with an 18 X-ray contracts. I'll talk about that here in a second. But an option 18 is for individuals who are prior service but need a security clearance when they're coming in. So maybe there's someone that got out of the Army, maybe out of the service in general, doesn't have a security clearance. Now they want to go back into the Army or go into the Army from another branch. But for the MOS they need a security clearance, probably going to go in as an option 18. But then there's an 18 X-ray contract, and that is to guarantee they're going to go off to Special Forces, kind of. I mean, you're going to go off to this selection academy, right? You're going to go to SFAS, the Special Forces Assessment and Selection, right? School, the course and everything to see if you've got what it takes to become Special Forces. And if you pass it, and in addition to passing it, prove to like the cadre, the individuals there at the school, that you are someone they want in Special Forces, then you get selected and you can go off to the Special Forces. So if you're looking to go directly into the Army, into the Special Forces, then you want an 18 X-ray contract. Now, there is some requirements with that. Specifically, you have to be 20 years old. There is waivers you can get for that possibly, but otherwise, outside of trying to get a waiver for it, you usually have to be at least 20 years old. And then you also have to be an E3. So you have to come in with a little bit of rank. Sometimes there's things the recruiter can do, like, you know, just some extra schooling and classes and stuff like that prior to joining. They can possibly get you an E3, but otherwise maybe an associate's degree or something along those lines to meet those qualifications to be able to do that. But 18 X-ray, someone who wants to go to that SFAS so they can hopefully pass that and get selected and become a Green Beret in the Special Forces. Next up, we have an option 19, which is actually a really popular one. It's actually a fairly newer one as well, but this one allows you to choose your first duty station, which is very different from what some of my veterans and viewers may be kind of used to, where you had to fill out a dream sheet, maybe in basic training or AIT, and probably didn't get any of those and got sent some results, where this will allow you to be guaranteed the one you select as long as you qualify for that location. Because with an option 19 contract, let's say you really want to go to Fort Carson, which I keep on mentioning because that's where I currently work out of, my last duty station, but let's say you really want to get Fort Carson, right? If they have the slots for your MOS and it's available, then they can lock that into your contract to guarantee that after you graduate AIT, you will go off to Fort Carson, Colorado, because it was locked into your contract. Now, just because you chose a 19 contract, an option 19 contract, and you want this specific assignment, doesn't mean you're just guaranteed to get it. You have to meet the qualifications, meaning that they have to need your MOS there. There can still be chances where even though that duty assignment that you want is one of the ones available, your MOS doesn't have any slots for that location, and that makes it to where you can't get that one locked into your contract. But nonetheless, if it's a duty station that needs your MOS and you can get it, then that allows them to lock that into your contract so you know exactly where your first duty station is going to be before you even ship off to basic training. So that's an option 19. Option 20 is also a fairly newer one, also very specific. It's apparently just to guarantee that you're going to go to Alaska. If you want to guarantee that your first duty assignment is going to be Alaska, then I guess you ask for an option 20 and that'll allow you to go to Alaska for your first duty station. If you are someone that wants to join the United States Army and you want to be in the Rangers, as long as you have a qualifying MOS, because not every MOS is allowed in the Rangers, well, then if you have that qualifying MOS and you want to specifically go to the Rangers, you want option 40. Option 40 will allow you to go off to the Ranger Assessment and Selection Program, otherwise known as RASP, immediately after you complete AIT, OSIT, whatever the case is. You complete that, you will then send off to Ranger Assessment and Selection to essentially go off to the Rangers as long as you pass and get selected. One last one that I want to mention that doesn't actually have like an option number, but it is a specific one that sometimes people ask me about, and that is the buddy program, right? If you have a good friend that you want to join the Army with, you both want to be in the same MOS, well then you can enlist under the buddy program that allows you both to get the same MOS, to go to the same basic training or OSIT, go off to the same AIT, and then get your very first duty station at the same location together, so that way you guys can hang out and be buddies at the same duty station. It won't guarantee the same unit, but at least the same duty assignment, and then beyond the first duty station you could get separated, but it just guarantees that first duty assignment you guys will get to be together. So if you want to join with a good friend and be friends forever and be in the Army together, ask your recruiter about the buddy program. Also important to probably note is that you usually can't layer these together, right? You want to be able to pick your first duty assignment, but you also want Airborne school. You can't get an option 19 plus an option 4 and stack them together, typically. There might be ways that recruiters can make that happen sometimes, but otherwise, typically you can't like stack these different types of options together. So always talk to your recruiter about it, right? Maybe the recruiter's got some workaround that they can hook you up and get it in there, but essentially, if you want to be guaranteed something, you got to get in your contracts. That's where these options kind of come into play, of getting that specific option so you're guaranteed what it is you're looking for when you join the Army. Now, for my viewers out there that are watching this, what's an option that interests you? Maybe you're interested in joining the Army and one of these are like, hey, that's the option I want, and that's the one I'm going to talk to my recruiter about, or maybe you've already talked to your recruiter about. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Also, for those of you that are watching this and they're already in the Army, let me know, is there any options that you joined, or is there any of those options that you re-enlisted for, so that way you can get something guaranteed when you re-enlisted? I want to hear about those down in the comment section as well down below. For me, I didn't know jack squat about joining the Army. I just kind of joined, didn't know what benefits were out there, didn't know about any options. I'm not even sure if these options existed. I know some of them did not exist when I joined, but I basically essentially got option 1. I didn't get to pick crap. I got to pick my MOS and that was it. I didn't get to pick where my first duty station was. I didn't get any guaranteed school, nothing. Now, when I re-enlisted, well, I re-enlisted the first time in Korea and I wanted a specific location stateside, so kind of had that option to be able to pick that specific location. And then when I re-enlisted the other times after that, I wanted to stay at Fort Carson, so I re-enlisted for the option to allow me to stay at my current duty station. So I essentially used some of those options, but back then I don't think I knew that those were called those options, if they even had those option names, but nonetheless, that's what I got. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I recommend hitting that thumbs up, maybe sharing it with someone. If you're not subscribed, you owe me some push-ups. So just hit that subscribe now and we'll call it good, all right? And you want to owe me any push-ups. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, I appreciate you for watching the video, especially all the way to the end. I'm Christopher Chaos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya.